Reconciliation is what we're talking about. Why I'm excited about this topic is because we were created for relationship, designed for relationship. The moment that you landed out of the womb, you were reaching out for the hand of your mom or the thumb of your mom. You wanted more than who you are. You needed to connect with another person. In other words, life is impossible without relationships. That's how we were created. Relationships are just amazing. With friends, with neighbors, with your spouse. Those of you who have been married for less than 2 years, you love it. Please continue to love it. Before you get some revelations. That you really did not get married to an angel. You know, I used to call my wife an angel, and then a few years later I realized, kumbe angels also have issues. And we had to deal with those issues. And the same way as me as well. I had my own issues. So I began to realize good relationships could hurt very deep. We long for relationships, but the thing about relationships, they don't always go well. With your dad, with your spouse, with your BFF, with whoever else. They don't always go right. Things get bad. But before I go to the bad, 3 things we get all from relationships. Number 1, affection. Don't you love it when someone just loves you? And then they are mature enough to say it. Don't you just really love it? When they say it, some of you have fallen in love. No, actually, the right word in church is some of you have grown into love. You don't fall. You grow into love suddenly, you know. Within one day, you're just texting away and you can't stop. Even in the middle of a World Cup game, you're just texting away. And you feel such affection towards this person, or you feel loved, and you get a hug and a handshake and things like that, and you feel loved. That's amazing. But number 2 is affirmation. You want to be told that you've done that well, you're unique. Oh, I love it when you say this. Your voice is awesome. Your hairdo is just the best. Even when it's not true, you just want to be told that. I have this thing about my wife. After being married for a few years, I realized I needed to say something positive when she came out of the salon, if I knew what was good for me. And so I didn't want to lie because I'm a good Christian. And she comes with a hairdo, and I don't really like it. I'm very artistic. I should have been a salonist. But I'm very artistic, so I see whether the hairdo goes with the head shape and things like that. And so I looked at the hairstyle one day and said, there's no way I'm going to lie about it. But I need to be positive. So I looked at her and said, wow, do you see how much they waxed on you in that salon? Positive, but no value judgment. Affirmation. Affirmation. We all want some affirmation from those close to us. Thirdly is acceptance. We want to be accepted for who we are. Our height, our weight, and the rest of the things. I was very short growing up, so I used to pray, and I made a deal with God. If you want me to be a preacher, I need to grow a little taller than the pulpit. And I think God answered. But what I didn't like about it was people used to tell me all the time, oh, you're so short. I knew it. I knew it. I didn't want people repeating it. Don't you not like those people who keep telling you, hey, you have added weight? You're thinking, I sort of know it. Let's talk about the weather and World Cup. You want acceptance for who you are, and relationships really feel good. But attachment or connectedness is the first thing we get to learn from our mothers once we land here. You want that from everyone else. And that's why it hurts so deep when relationships don't go well, when they go sour, when someone hurts you, because they are close to you. The thing is, to live and to love is to be vulnerable. To live and to love is to be very vulnerable. I read that somewhere. It's not original to me. But the fact that you're alive and that you love someone else, you're going to be hurt. You just need to know that and live with it. That's why relationships sometimes get very difficult because of the hurt. You see, the closer someone is to you, the more they hurt you. I mean, a stranger could step on your toe out there on your high heels, and you would tell them, God bless you, go home well. They're strangers. But if someone at home that you know very well, your spouse, steps on your toes, you say, are you trying to kill me or something? You knew my leg is always here. What are you trying to do? The closer you are, the more it hurts when something goes wrong. I had a friend of mine who was like my best friend. We wanted to grow old together and do stuff together. I mean, he was the closest that I ever had a friend. We used to talk everything and talk about where we're going to live together, what we're going to do in the future. I mean, he was my best friend by any definition. Guess what? He betrayed me. Betrayal is the deepest wound that someone could take a knife and put on your heart. It hurts very deeply. Do you know how he betrayed me? He knew everything about me and all the stories I used to tell him. So he came up with a story because he was jealous about something we were doing, some ministry opportunity. And he thought everyone liked me, but not as much as they liked him. And so he came up with a story that I was a devil worship agent. You know those days of Moi and devil worship? So he came up with that story. He even said I had attempted several times to recruit him. So everybody believed him. I mean, nobody wanted to greet me. I went to church the following Sunday. It was a small church in the village. I sat on a bench and everyone left so that demons don't jump to them. The sermon was about a bad person with demons who is seated right at the back by himself. I've never felt hurt. You're laughing, but I almost died. It was so deep. And it's okay to laugh. I'm not against you. It was so deep. And later I'll tell you what happened with this friend of mine. He was called James, but I'll tell you about it. But it hurt so deep because he was very close to me. If it was a media person saying, I would say, what do they know about me? But the closest person to me. Offense elicits emotional response. Because of my personality, I never started shouting or calling him names or wishing him bad. I never really did that, or throwing things against the wall. I didn't do that. But I was quietly angry. And all of this thing was eating me up. That's what happens. Do you know why we get so mad about offense? Because offense is unfair. It's unfair. Why would he do that? Why would someone do that to me? I'm a good guy. Why do they give bad stories about me? It's unfair. Remember when your ex told you it was over and it's not about you? What did you feel? Remember when your spouse maybe walked away and your dreams for a great marriage were done and you took up a title that you never thought you would ever take? Remember when one of your relatives or someone else came up with a story and hurt you so deep? What do you feel about that? Or maybe you're the offender. Maybe you're the one who offended others, and you grow up, you walk away with guilt or shame or self-blame or sadness. When we get hurt, we feel things and not good things. So this is a question I want to answer today within the short few minutes that we have. How do you get back a relationship that you valued so much when it's been injured or it's been lost? How do you get it back? Or maybe if you cannot get it back, because sometimes it's impossible, how do you live with peace in spite of it? That's a question. 3 ways we react when we get hurt. We have the aggressive type. Aggressive type. Some of you are that. You get aggressive, you go and get drunk, you go and get violent, you throw something to the wall, you slash car tires of your boyfriend or girlfriend or someone else. You revenge, you have abuse, you call people names when they cut right in front of you, or you mutilate. Whatever it is, you're aggressive when you get hurt. Then there's another type that is a passive type. You don't really make noise, but inside you're wishing your friend death. And you're there. I'm like that sometimes. Because I'm a pastor, I can't say some things. But someone overlaps, and they can see we are all lining up. What's this thing with Kenyans? They overlap. I'm sure they don't come to church, but they overlap, and they cut right in front of you. And I'm thinking, don't you think we also have a car and that we're driving? What's wrong with you? And sometimes some animal names make up in my mind. Then I realize I'm born again, so I say, God bless you. God bless you. The passive type. But some of you, I know you will let out some words that you will need to repent afterwards. Passive aggressive. Others, they are passive, but when they are pushed to the wall, they become a cat. They're going to claw on you. Because offense is hard. Hurts very deep. And the thing about it, which is really sad, it hurts or kills a relationship. Spouses break up or live in separate rooms in the house. Dad quit on their families. This week we are doing Man Enough with the governor in Makueni, and we are training all of these guys who will be trainers of trainers, and we, in the next few years, we hope every young person in Makueni will have gone through Man Enough. And as I was talking to them, I just listened to their woundedness stories, and I was amazed. 80% of them were mad with their fathers. They just hated their dads. One of them said, I don't even want to see him, I might kill him. Because of what they went through. And their heart, communities fight, tribes hate each other for centuries because of what happened. Offense is a tool in the hands of the devil. Businesses break up. Management versus staff, they say words against each other. Offense is a real thing. We need to see how do we recover some of those relationships that have been lost or injured, or how do we live with peace? Now, we read that text, which I love in the Bible, because this near perfect guy in the Bible called Joseph, finally I realized, after all, he's human. As I read that story that Pastor read for us, let me give you the background, the 411, before we get to chapter 45. So Joseph is 17 years old. He has some weird dreams of being the boss to his family members. And then the brothers get an opportunity. When he visits them, and you know the story. And they throw him into a pit, and then they sell him off. He goes to Potiphar's house. From the pit to Potiphar's house, he gets framed by a woman who liked him a little too much. And then he goes to prison, all of them peace. Pit, Potiphar's wife, prison. And then in prison, the Pharaoh had a dream, and he promotes him because he interprets the dream to power. Don't you like those P's? Pit to power. But it wasn't a walk in the park. It was difficult. So he's 40 years now. He's already managing the dream that he interpreted for Pharaoh. He has provided food security. Yeah, we need Josephs in our country. So he has gathered all the food. There's enough food for 7 years. 2 years into the next phase of famine, the brothers from out there, they're hungry, and so they come looking for food. And so chapter 42 is the first time they came to visit. Why is he human? He recognizes them, but he gets so mad. He speaks to them harshly, calls them spies, throws them into prison for 3 days. Good for them, isn't it? 3 days, and then later he releases them and keeps one of them until they bring their youngest, who is Benjamin. They come again after a while. Second visit, chapter 43. And he treats them a little bit better. He has mellowed a bit, and now he's missing them. He has lunch with them, graciously talks with them. At some point, he weeps so loudly, and goes to a private room. And then he releases them the next day, but not without drama. He puts his cup, orders his cup, silver cup, to be put in Benjamin's sack, lets them go. When they get to the river, he sends some guys to catch them, brings them back. He says, why are you stealing the king's cup? Yeah? Sounds like Mexican soap. But there's just so much drama here. He brings them back, begins to talk with them, asks them questions, And now we are in chapter 45. Could not control himself. The emotions are raw. And he says, I am your brother. I am Joseph. I mean, he had missed them, but he was still mad with them. 3 things we see from that story before I let you go to eat and watch football. Number 1, offense gives you a right to be mad. Offense gives you a right to be mad. He had feelings. He's a biblical hero, but he was annoyed. He talked to them. I don't know whether he was bitter or hateful or what he had gone through, but he was mad in one way or another, looking at his behavior. He even cried and wept loudly, maybe for the desire for the relationships to be restored, or maybe in remembrance of what they had done and listening to the voices of what they said in his presence before they sold him away. Offense gives you a right to be mad. You see, emotions are like the dashboard. They are pointers to what is happening deep inside. So they're not bad. That's what the Bible says, be angry. It's like a command. Be angry, but do not sin. It's okay to feel angry. It's what you do with it that matters. So I know many of you sitting here, there's a lot of emotions here. If they were released, they would form a river because of the things that we have gone through, raw emotions that we carry every day. Offense gives you a right to be mad. Number 2, are you still with me? All right. Deal with your emotions. What I love about him is he expressed his emotions. He did not suppress them. Culturally, in East Africa especially, we're not very confrontational. So you hate someone, but you never tell them. When you see them, you smile and talk. And inside, you're thinking, who does he think he is? He expressed his emotions. That's one of the things I pray, that God helps me to be able to express my emotions. It's healthy, but in a controlled way, in a healthy way. They tell us in therapy that you need to talk to the offender and express what you feel about them in a healthy and respectful manner. If you can't talk to them, find a friend and tell them about someone who hurt you very deeply, like James, who hurt me. If that doesn't happen, find a counselor. Talk to a stranger. Or they say, put a seat somewhere and say, one boy, sit here. Do you remember what you did? And it's an empty chair, but you're dealing with your emotions. You're letting it come out, whatever it is that you feel. And it's healthy. Or journal it, write it out, sing it out, run it out, go for a run. It's good and healthy. Or bring those emotions to God. It's not or, and bring those emotions to God. Bring them to God and say, God, this is what I feel about James. Look at how he betrayed me. Oh, God, I am serving you well. But this man, this is what he does. God. And I bring those emotions. Number 3. You still with me? Please answer. You still with me? Yes. Thank you. You know, we are conversational in Africa. Number 3, insist on the right to be free. Insist on the right to be free. Look here. I'm a lawyer. And we have this saying in law that you have lower rights and higher rights. And some lower rights have got to submit to higher rights. And as I think about this, you have a right to be mad. That's a lower right. But then you have another right, which is higher, which is the right to be free. You know, when you're mad, you're carrying that person inside of you. You're annoyed with them 20 years on. You still have the feelings. It's like you're carrying them. They're loads on your emotions. But you have another right where you can say, I will let it go. I will forgive. I'll release them. I'll release them. Forgiveness sounds like it's unfair, but it's fair on you. You see, forgiveness is not a gift to your offender. It's a gift to yourself. Bitterness, hate, and all of these negative emotions is like drinking poison and expecting the person who hurt you to die. You're carrying the poison yourself, and you need to let go and release so that you may cleanse your soul. That's what Joseph did. He released them. So you guys annoyed me. He even insisted, I am here, God brought me here because you sold me into slavery. Can you imagine? You sold me. I'm sure he emphasized that. But later he told them, but don't worry, God was in charge of it. That's why I'm here, so I can forgive you. In spite of what you did, there's a God in heaven who can turn it around. Give him a clap, everyone who is here today. He can turn it around. So he let it go. And I can imagine it wasn't easy. He was now in power, so he could have told them, all of you, go to prison. Now think about it next year. That would have felt good. Revenge feels good. But you know, Martin Luther King Jr. said, the best revenge to your enemies is to forgive them. Let it go. And as you forgive them, the next thing you do is look for reconciliation. He did not only forgive them, he said, how are my folks? How are they doing in Egypt? You guys go back, bring them. We're going to live together as a happy family again. It takes a lot of humility to say, you hurt me, I forgive you, come back. Let's be friends again. You have to swallow a lot of pride. And for those who are concerned about weight, pride, once you swallow it, it doesn't fatten. So you can just swallow it. And then come to a place of humility and then have faith in God. God will make this go well. The one point of this message that I want you to go home with is this. Forgive for freedom. Forgive for freedom. But reconcile for relationship. Say that with me. Forgive for freedom. Reconcile for relationship. Look at your neighbor and tell them. In case you're sitting next to your spouse and you're the ones who are arguing, just tell them it's not personal. It's not personal. We're in church. I'm just doing what I'm told to do. Forgive for freedom, reconcile for relationship. Now, he had an option. He could have said, I don't want this relationship anymore. Let's deal with you guys and execute you. He had the power to do it. But he longed for the relationship. But see, to long for the relationship, he had to deal with the toxins. He had to detox all of that hate and all of those feelings. Maybe you're seated here today and you're bitter against your ex. Not the first ex, but the last ex. It's for what they did. Or you're bitter against your dad for how they deserted you. Or maybe your workmate came up with a story and got you fired, or against your boss, who is not just a good man, or against a relative, or against your mom, who was really harsh. All of these wounds, we carry them. You need to let it go. It's okay to be mad or angry. It's wrong to stay angry. Because anger and all of those negative emotions, they contaminate your soul. They steal away the joy. You become irritable, emotionally unstable, mood swings, and all of that. Number 2, messes up your relationships. You don't want to talk to those people. Number 3, affects your physical health. According to UK Psychology Journal, they say that up to 70% of all diseases are either aggravated or caused by emotional baggage. Just need to detox. Let it go. Forgive for your freedom. Reconcile for relationship. Clean your soul. The Bible says in Ephesians 4:27 and 31, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. In other words, keep it short. Keep it short. Short record of wrongs. Don't wait until the sun goes down, whether it's a day or 2 a week, but don't let it go down. And do not give the devil a foothold. Don't invite the devil into your soul. It says, get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, along with every form of malice. Let it go. Release it. Forgive for freedom, reconcile for relationship. You see, ultimately, God is the one who helps us to heal. I got to forgive my brother James. And I remember it was tough. I went several times to him and said, I want to forgive you. Let's talk about this. I know you know this is a lie. You know what he told me? I don't want to talk to someone who is demonized. He left me standing there. I went and cried myself to sleep. I came back the following day and I talked to him. He said, I can't talk to you. He started casting me out as if I'm a demon. My friend, the one I'd loved, eaten food with, spent nights together. I mean, I was really hurt. And I kept going. I think I went like 9 times before he finally said, he sat down, he wept, and he said, I lied about you. And I hurt you very deeply. And I want to go back to the church and apologize where I announced it. And a lot of people had heard about it. So my reputation was already shattered. And after forgiving, I had to ask myself, yes, I've forgiven for freedom. I've let it go. I feel free. But do I want to fight for the relationship? You see, forgiveness is a command in the Bible. Reconciliation is a recommendation. That this is the right thing to do. Do you know why it's a recommendation? Because it's not up to you to reconcile to everyone. They may not be willing. I may be willing, but they may say, I don't want to talk to you. What can I do? And we're going to answer that in a moment. But thankfully, he held my arms, and we hugged each other, and tears flowed through us, washed away the pain. And guess what? Right now, we are great partners in the kingdom. Great partners in the kingdom. That's the beauty of reconciliation. He had something I needed. I have something he needs. We partner together. We bless the world together. I could have let it go, but I fought for the relationship. Forgive for freedom, reconcile for relationship. Ultimately, God knows this is a process. That's why Joseph said, you guys sought me out, but God has used it for good. I felt as I dealt with James that God was humbling me. God was just breaking some things inside of me, working inside of me. Sometimes God uses your enemies to purify your character and make you a better person. Thank God for the cross. Genesis 50 verse 19. I've got to close this before you start binding me because of the next game. By the way, those of you who are supporting Germany like myself and Messi as well, may the Lord help us. I know you're wounded, so forgive, let go. The referee wasn't a good guy. Let's let it go and we move on. By the way, don't put God's reputation on the line because of a team and losing a game. Don't put God into it. This is a game. All right? I was distracted. I'm sorry, Pastor George. Genesis 50 verse 19. Do not be afraid. Later, you see, their father died. And then the siblings came and said, now forgive us. They were thinking, now that our dad is dead, this guy is going to kill us. Then he told them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God has used it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. Can you imagine he was comforting them? Don't be afraid. This is when we see the character of Jesus. I will provide for you and for your children. Jesus is a perfect example. Joseph was a type of Christ. He forgave the very people who put him on the cross. He forgives me every day, even though I tarnish his name. And he forgives me. And he not only forgives me, he tells me, I want you to be my son. I not only let you go, I adopt you. Forgive for healing, for freedom, reconcile for relationship. I love it that at the cross, everything is rolled away. There's no Jew or Gentile. There's no Kikuyu or Luo. There's no Kamba or Kalenjin. At the cross, we can love one another, reconcile with each other. There's no husband or a wife. We can be equal in Christ and forgive one another. Paul says, 2 Corinthians 5:18-19, all this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. I love it. That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting people's sins against them. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. Look here. He has reconciled me with God. And some of you are alienated. Alienation is the greatest disease in the human soul, where you are by yourself. And some of us were alienated from God, but through the cross, we have been reconciled to Christ. We are now children to the Father. Those of you who are born again, give him a clap. We are now his children, reconciled to God. He doesn't count all that against us. Number 2, he's reconciling the world to himself, and we are partners with him. As we plant churches, and as we talk to the lost, we are telling them, come on, come back home. Your daddy wants you. Your daddy wants you. He wants you home. Reconciling the world to himself. And number 3, he has sent us with a ministry of reconciliation to reconcile communities in Kenya, management versus staff, the department head versus those who report to him. He has sent us out to reconcile others. Couples quarreling at the parking lot, to reconcile them and tell them, go back home and enjoy your lunch. Communities, that this is our ministry. It's something to carry. We do it, but we send it out there. Forgive for freedom, reconcile for relationship. So what do you do when you're in an abusive relationship and it's going on? Jesus said, forgive 7 times, 70 times. In other words, keep forgiving every time you're wronged. But you have a choice. Do I want to stay in this relationship and get crushed or killed? Or should I step aside and pray that God would change them? And that eventually maybe we can reconcile. But if I don't decide to reconcile, I'll do my best. I'll long for the relationship because it's important. But I cannot force the other person, but I'll keep forgiving. If it's physical abuse and other kinds of abuse that destroy your soul, you may need to step away as you deal with this and as you pray over it. And I've seen many people who stepped away and prayed, and eventually God turns things around. But there's no guarantee. God may never turn things around, but may it be in your heart you are longing for that relationship and that you tried what you could try. If the other party is not willing, you can't do much about it, because it's do your part and the other person have their part to play, whether it's a marriage or a father and the children, or maybe a boss and the others. Do your part and leave the rest to God. Joseph laid it down on the table. I forgive you. I want you guys to be my brothers one more time. I want to give you a place to stay. Do you want it? Take the offer or leave it. Some people choose to leave it. Pursue reconciliation. Let it be what you pray about. As I bring us to a close, look at me, everyone. What do you think would happen if all of us left here with a resolve in the name of God to forgive everyone? That's not optional. To forgive the people who have hurt us, right from childhood until yesterday or last night or this morning. Let it go. Just release. Forgive them in the name of Christ for your freedom. What if we also began a pursuit of relationships to get them back? Your father that you have not talked to for a long time, what if you brought them back? What if you got back that relationship and enjoyed the rest of it before your dad departs? What if you did that? What if you brought these communities together and say, we have hurt each other, but could we get back together? Where it's possible and where it's admirable, and go ahead. Where it's desirable, go ahead and reconcile. This is a ministry God has given us because there's a benefit to the relationship. Joy could come back to many marriages if we left here and went to do this. I believe some families that have been estranged for years could come back together. I believe the workplace could be a better place if we practiced reconciliation. I believe Kenya and Africa will have less wars and less animosity if we practiced and took the ministry of reconciliation out there. This is our calling. Forgive for freedom. Reconcile for relationship. So what I'm saying, once you forgive, you have peace. Even if you don't get back the relationship, you have peace in your heart. And with the other person, do your part and have peace. If a relationship comes back, you will be blessed with an extra blessing. So ABCD, write this down and go home and do it. Number 1, A, acknowledge that someone has hurt you, wherever it is. Acknowledge it. So you can never deal with what you don't acknowledge. So just acknowledge it, that someone has hurt you. Don't deny it. Don't cover it. Acknowledge. Number 2, begin the process of healing with a decision to forgive. And where needful, to confront in a way to show forgiveness. So begin the process of healing. Healing is a process, but it begins with a step of a decision to forgive and let go whoever it is who hurt you. C, A is acknowledge the hurt. B is begin the process by letting go, forgiving for your freedom. C, come to God for healing. Come to God for healing. Come to the place where you say, God, I need healing. It's not going to be overnight when your husband or your spouse has hurt you so deeply, or your dad or your pastor. It's not going to be overnight. You will see them as angels tomorrow. No, it's going to take time. But once you start the process, God orchestrates the healing. By his wounds, we have been healed. And D, destroy the barriers to the relationship and seek reconciliation where possible. I tried 8 times to talk to James to be reconciled. Had he said no forever, I would have let him go and live with peace. But thank God he came back and we reconciled, and now we are great friends and partners in the gospel. If not, commit it to God and release it to the God who is able to turn things around. Isaiah 53 verse 5, my last verse. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought peace was upon him. By his wounds, we have been healed. My dear friends, may we go out of here knowing Jesus paid for this. Forgiveness, for us to forgive and get free, for us to receive forgiveness and get free. He paid for it. Paid for it. For us to get peace. But also by his wounds we have been healed. May we come out of here to do 1,000,000 handshakes around the city. Handshakes that will bring meaning to relationships. What if this church got known and you got known wherever you went as a reconciler, as a pursuer of relationships, that you'd never just gave up on people. You prayed and pursued that relationship. What if we committed to this ministry of reconciliation? Forgive for freedom, reconcile for relationship.